I was actually involved in a double fatal crash in September 23rd, 2007. And it was the most awful day of my entire life. They died on scene, and people were trying to shield me from that. But I mean, I heard somebody say they don't have a pulse, and like just crushed. I was crushed.
How long were you there until you realized what was happening?
Not very long, because I literally, when my mom finally made it to the hospital, I was in such shock and just kept like repeating like the same thing. Like, oh my God, I killed 2 people. Like, how am I ever going to live with myself? How?
Hello, Alter Eagle. This is Laura. I wanted to start today's episode a little different because the subject matter that we are discussing is a very sensitive one. The story that Shanea Clancy will share today does involve a story where 2 people lost their lives. It's something that Shanea thinks about every day. She has been through so much since then and is grateful for the life that she does have. My goal always is to be sensitive to anyone who is listening, anyone out there who was affected by this, who lost family members. We do send our love and condolences to those family members. To anyone on here who's listening who has lost anyone in a tragic accident, sharing her story was not easy. Sitting down with her was not easy. But it's important for us to talk about these situations, for us all to be mindful of the choices that we are making, especially when it comes to drinking and then getting into our cars. I have sat back and reflected on my life up to this point. And I've said this to you before. I am not perfect. I am so far from perfect. I am constantly beating myself up over things that happened years ago. All I know is who I am, what I feel, what I think, what I've experienced. And to be able to sit down with Shanea to talk about her book, but what brought her to this book, what brought her to where she is now. And just like all of us, she is someone who could have never, ever expected anything like this to transpire. So thank you for being here for today's episode. These stories are important. These conversations are important. And my goal always is to make sure that everyone is seen and heard, understood, and recognized for how far that they have come, and for taking responsibility and ownership over the choices they have made. And that's one of the biggest things that I pulled from this episode, from sitting down with Shanea. And she even said that when she was firing lawyers who wanted to skirt around, she wanted to own what she did. And for that, I commend her. Thank you for following us. If you're listening, I appreciate you so much. It means so much to me. I know it means so much to us here at the Eagle, and to Tammy Shuey, who brought me onto this team. She saw something in me, and I'm grateful for that. Hello, and welcome to this season of Alter Eagle. We are starting season 1 with the topic of addiction in Butler County. conversations on the physical side of addiction, trauma, the neuroscience, mental health, and stigma surrounding addiction. Experts, resources, and stories from people who have fought addiction head on. I am your host, Laura Krigo. Let's keep the conversation going. Now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. For a long time, I suffered with depression and anxiety. I had tried therapy before, but struggled finding a therapist I connected with until I found BetterHelp. That's why I am so excited to share BetterHelp's mission to make therapy more affordable and more accessible, because finding a therapist can be hard, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online. Remote therapy sessions, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. Click the link in description and receive 10% off your first month of BetterHelp. And by clicking that link, you support this channel. Plus, you can easily switch to a new therapist at no additional cost without stressing about insurance, who's in your network, or anything like that. I was struggling for a long time, and BetterHelp was where I found my therapist, Whitney, who I still see weekly for almost 2 years now. So, if you're struggling like I was, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in description or go to betterhelp.com/altereagle. That's betterhelp.com/altereagle. There's no better time than now to start your mental health journey. Thank you again, BetterHelp, for supporting this channel. This episode is brought to you by Butler County District Attorney Richard A. Goldinger, R.W. McDonald & Sons Incorporated, Robert Stevens Jewelers. Thank you to our sponsors for your support on our first season of the Alter Eagle podcast. Shanea Clancy.
You spelled it right, too.
I did spell it right. It's a good thing to spell someone's name right, isn't it? Oh,
Love
okay.
it.
Love it. Okay, Shanea Clancy. Let's talk really quickly. What do you want your introduction to be? Like when I introduce you at the beginning of the episode, what do you want me to say?
How about just Shanea Clancy?
That's it? I mean,
you could put the doctor in there if you want, but
you have how many degrees do you have?
a couple.
Okay. A couple is 2.
Yeah. Kind of how, like, when most people say a couple, they mean like 5 or 6.
Okay. Anyone who's listening, if you're referring to a couple, do you think 5 or 6? Especially when we're talking about degrees.
But I work in the world of addiction.
But you have 5?
Yeah.
Okay. First degree.
Registered nurse.
That was Clarion?
That was at West Penn.
West Penn.
I did my diploma, and then I got my bachelor's at Clarion.
That's 2.
Then my master's in forensic nursing
at
Duquesne University.
3.
And I went back to Duquesne University for my doctorate. Thought I was done, and then I went on postdoctoral for the executive MBA in healthcare at Pitt. That is 5. I was just guessing.
Okay, how many years in total of education post high school has that been?
Nursing school was 2 years, bachelor's 2 years, master's. So 10.
Wow, really?
Every one of them were like 2 years, yeah.
Is that typical for all of those, or were there certain ones where you like maybe jam-packed your semesters and did summer? And
Oh,
do you know
definitely
what I mean?
jam-packed,
Yeah,
accelerated, especially for the doctorate. Most
And
people take like 5 years to do that.
Okay, so
I love
listen, casual. You should enter a room with that.
Enter Rome.
A room.
Oh, a room?
Like when you walk into a room, do you just say, I mean, I have 5 degrees.
No. I just say, hi, I'm Shanea. What's your name?
Dr. Shanea Clancy sitting down with me today. She doesn't want me to say anything else, but we already talked about how many degrees she has. We are sitting down to talk about Shanea's book that she wrote and here's the other thing that she accelerated. Writing this book and getting this book published.
Yeah. You can really do it in like 90 days.
But didn't we talk that you had kind of had the book in your brain? Did you have the book in your brain?
I did, but didn't use a piece of it. It's all different from what I originally had in my brain and just sitting in an email outbox.
And why do you think that it like sat there for so long? Did you just kind of know that maybe there just needed to be more that you had to accomplish, i.e., I don't know, 4th and 5th degree, perhaps?
No, I think it sat there because I wasn't ready for that.
You weren't ready to tell the story.
Yeah, it wasn't time.
So a lot of people who are listening, obviously, you look at the title, Transforming Trauma into Triumph. I think, honestly, trauma, what you went through was trauma.
Yeah.
I almost feel like this word, it's like it needs to be an acronym almost. It's like every letter needs to define.
Oh.
Do you know what I'm saying? I almost feel like looking at it and knowing your story and sitting here with you and having met you and talking to you. And she is.
I like that idea.
Yeah, let's think about it. Maybe
that'll be my next book.
That's one of my questions. Do you see yourself writing another book?
Yeah.
Okay, well we just answered that question.
I do.
She does. And is that because you did this and just like kind of the feeling of accomplishment of finally getting it out, and you have, well, how do you say Anne's last name? Baylor. Ann Baylor is the founder of Annie Ann's Pretzels. She's
in her backyard.
Motivational speaker. I mean, come on, people. Author of Overcome and Lead and podcast host of Overcome with Auntie Anne. She wrote a testimonial. It's the first one on the back of your book. Can I read it?
Absolutely. And I'm very thankful that she did.
When you sent me that link, I was like, is this Auntie Anne?
It is. Listen, that's what I used to look forward to when we went to the mall, right? When malls were a thing. And I didn't grow up in like a rich family. It was more poor family. And so getting Annie Ann pretzels at the mall was like the highlight. So to have her on my book is like,
yeah,
ta-da!
That's amazing. I love that. I almost feel like you kind of manifested that, right? So her testimonial for Shanea's book is powerful, inspirational, and authentic. ! I think punctuation is very important. Shanea's story and lessons may be the gift from God you've been looking for. Shanea's courage to write this book will give you, the reader, the courage to share your story. As you tell your story, you will gain freedom. That right there. I think that's one of the things about being an author, right? Which is you're adding that to your long resume.
Actually, #1 best-selling author.
We're doing it again. Okay, so #1 selling best offer, it was on Amazon when it dropped, right? Which was last Wednesday.
Yes.
Was that something that you're like, okay, this is a goal. This is what I want to shoot for?
It was a goal. Best-selling author was a goal.
Yeah.
#1 I thought would be a little hard to do, especially because the market of Christian authors that have dropped this month it's pretty
okay.
Tight competition.
So that was my next question is there a specific like category that goes into? Whenever it's like best-selling, or was it like overall that day on Amazon, best-selling new book that dropped, boom. But then also on top of that, it was of Christian authors as well?
Yeah, so there was 3 categories, Christian author, women's, and then self-help.
Oh. And all 3 of those?
Yeah, #1 in all 3.
What? This is a good-sized book too. Like I had the manuscript. But you ever, once you get the book in your hands and you've like got that book, I'm like, this is a good size book.
It's got some meat to it.
We've got meat. It's what's for dinner. Okay. Sorry, I don't.
Sorry if you're a vegetarian.
If you're a vegetarian, faux turkey,
Sounds
tofu.
good.
It's what's for dinner. Mushrooms. Live your life.
Mushrooms are good.
I have a lot of friends that are vegetarian and vegan. And I'm like, cool. More power to you. Do your thing.
Yeah.
185 pages. So, and you have how many chapters? 25?
Yes.
25 chapters. I broke that down. How did you decide as you were writing how each chapter, the title of the chapter, was going to connect to your Bible verse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously the message in that chapter. How did you come up with those?
So I started writing what the titles would be first. I started with that, and I kind of tweaked them afterwards because when I wrote it, it's not how it initially was. It goes through many edits. And then I would pair a Bible verse that went with that chapter and then write the content based on what that chapter was about.
Okay. That's interesting. Is that typical whenever you're doing whenever you're writing a book? Does that typically happen, or did you sort of just decide this is what I'm doing?
No, I mean, I'm sure an outline is typical, and that's kind of what I just did 25 bullet points, an outline, and then kind of filled the gaps in between.
Wow. Oh.
It was really challenging to come up with the 25. I probably changed them 25 times at least.
Girl, you're the definition of hustle. Look how many people gave you, I dropped the ball. I dropped the ball. I was
did it. You're
yes,
so busy.
Yes, I did. Yeah, but everyone's busy. I'm that's how I am though. I get annoyed with myself when I say I'm just too busy, and then I'm like, they're probably annoyed hearing that from me. But legit, it was you needed it. Was it a Wednesday or a Thursday? I feel like it was
I don't even remember. It was a tight turnaround.
It was tight, and I was like, I'm only halfway through, and being able to absorb. I typically am the person that sometimes has to go back and look at things again and highlight things and reflect on things and take a beat. And I tend to read at night while going to bed.
And you doze off
and then I fall asleep
and relaxed.
Because you're relaxed and you're chill, and the dog has finally put down the loudest squeaky toy in the house. And you're like, dude, it's midnight.
Yeah.
And you want to play again. I love you, but
not right now.
I can't do this right now. I need to bring it down. So, I apologize, but I'm really, really proud of you for how much she hustled to just promote herself. And I don't think that's an easy thing to do. I don't think a lot of people are able to do it in the way that you did it. Very humbling.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it has to be uncomfortable.
It is, because it's can you do me this huge favor in this really short deadline turnaround? And some of these people I didn't even know,
yeah.
And they over-delivered so fast, and I was just dumbfounded. My editor, he said he has never seen somebody get this many testimonials for a book, period, let alone in the tight turnaround time frame that I had. And when I asked people, I was like, if you can't, it's no problem. I wouldn't expect a testimonial anyhow, but it was really wild how fast they came back. I think there's 48.
Girl, I don't know. I'm going to have to count them. I just started looking in the beginning. I was
should know this off the top of my head, but I know it ends in an 8, and I'm pretty sure.
Pop quiz time. How many testimonials did you get for this book? Let's talk very briefly about the catalyst. I don't even know if catalyst is the thing that I want to say, but I am in no way saying that what you happened is bad things come in threes. When something happens, you get a flat tire, right? And you're like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
And then on your way home, something hits your windshield and your windshield has a crack, and you're like, okay. And you're like, that's 2.
Where's the 3rd?
You're like, where's the 3rd?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And those are minor infractions compared to what you went through.
But this, it's not a comparison.
I know it's not a comparison, but what I'm saying is when you went through what you went through, even just the initial, and then it was again.
Yeah.
Something that a lot of women, especially, and I don't think it's not just women, right? These It happens to men too, but some women just in their own experience with something so traumatic like that, they can't rise back up just from that.
It's hard.
And you were already you were in jail.
I was. Mm-hmm.
How scary is that? I just have to ask you.
Going to jail?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Like when you had to go to a preliminary hearing, like I would just be totally.
I mean, yeah. I still remember what I wore that day. I'll never forget what I wore that day. I had a green sweater on, like a light green sweater, black pants, and I had these Merrill shoes. They were just like boot-like shoes, but I'll never forget. And I was in the middle of nursing school and was planning on coming home that day. And at the end of that hearing, I was held without bail. I didn't even know what that meant. No clue. And then I was put in a cell and holding and just told to get comfortable. There's like these buttons that you hit that you can call out to the COs. The jail I was in had, I mean, I don't know if every jail has a button, but I'm sure they have to have some form of button. And like hit it, and I was like, what's going on? When am I leaving? Because literally it was just like so quick. And they're like, you're not leaving. I'm like, what do you mean I'm not leaving? Like and it was so selfish in that moment to really think about it. I was like, I still have nursing school to finish. I'm in the middle of nursing school. I have all these things, but like, no, I was told to just sit there.
And then how long did you stay like in the holding cell before? And did you have a lawyer at that point? Was someone appointed to you as a lawyer?
Oh yeah, I had a lawyer. I interviewed with a couple attorneys. They were not somebody that I would want to represent me morally, so I fired them. I was like willing to own my stuff, and some attorneys don't want you to own your stuff. They want to help you get out of it without owning it. And I'm like, no, that doesn't sit with my moral compass. I'll take ownership of whatever I need to. So yeah, I have a really phenomenal lawyer, but yeah, he was the one who somehow held this hearing, and it was probably like, I don't know, felt like a million years. It was probably like 8 hours later that a CO came and was like, get your stuff, you're going. I'm like, I don't have any stuff, but let's go. Okay. And I was released without bail. I was released on my own recognizance. So I went from not being able to physically pay my way out, like it didn't even matter if I had like millions. I wasn't going anywhere, to not paying a penny to step out of jail.
How long were you held for before that happened?
That was like 8 hours. That was the same day.
Okay. And then after that, like what was the process of you then like going to jail? Obviously then there's like a official... I
had to do report to pretrial services every week. So with like a counselor to make sure that like I was okay, because I mean, I wasn't a flight risk, but they just wanted to like check in with me. I had to do bunch of like therapy and classes and tons of stuff. And I went back, took 2 weeks off nursing school, and I literally just like slept in the recliner with a hoodie and headphones on and listened to music and hated myself. Not that I would classify different people, but like picture like an emo I don't know. I don't want to like say it to be like,
yeah, you don't seem like a hoodie person to me, but
listen, I was like anything to like duck and dive and not have to like see myself in the mirror. What was interesting is later on in life, I found out that people that wear hoodies with the hood up and walk around a lot of times are self-conscious. And I'm like, that made perfect sense psychologically looking back. Never put it together at the time.
Or it's almost like a signal of like wanting to be left alone.
Yeah,
I've definitely done that. Like I'm a hat girl.
Yeah.
So I walk my dog. I put my hat on. Sometimes I put headphones on. Depends what time of day it is, if I'm wearing headphones or not. Because if it's late at night, I'm like, yo, we are on alert. We have lights. We are always. I mean, I lived in New York. I lived in Harlem. Yeah. And I used to walk home from the Orange Line with keys between my fingers. And I'd put headphones in, but I didn't listen to music. And I walked like I knew where I was going.
Yeah, you have to.
When you're in New York, you walk like you know where you're going. This is a lesson to anyone going to New York City. don't look like you're a tourist. Please don't. When you go to the subway, don't stand on a platform.
Do the same thing in jail too. I hope you don't go there, but act like you know what you're doing.
Act like you know what you're doing. It's like that fake it till you make it,
Yeah.
right? You have to, unfortunately, that's just the way that it is.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. So back to this. So you said something about 2 weeks. So you were able to kind of go back to school before you actually got sentenced and then went to jail.
I did. I finished nursing school. I mean, I was at West Penn and I had a place. I lived there. And I was also dating somebody who was going to Pitt at that time. But that quickly was done. He left and was like, deuces. After we were together for 2 years.
So you were with this guy for 2 years.
Yeah.
And this really awful accident happens.
Yeah.
And he's like, peace.
Yeah. Just like that.
And you're like Pocahontas, waving goodbye to him.
I was like, I mean,
sure.
Just
now,
put another thing on the plate, right?
It's one of those situations where you can look back now and you can be like, man, I wish I had the power to do the Pocahontas wave. Just okay, bye. But in the moment, you're devastated.
I was like, all right.
But still,
Suck
you're
it to me. Right?
Maybe, oh my gosh. Listen, we're not even going to get into, we don't need to get into that.
Relationships, no. Mm-mm. My relationship history is a train wreck. You can read it. Read it in the book.
Read it in the book.
It's in there.
You heard it here first, folks. Read it in the book. The sentencing happens, hearing. I'm assuming it's one hearing.
Yeah. I want to backtrack real quick, though, because I would be on the clinical unit and taking care of patients.
Uh-oh.
And my face would be on the TV, in their room.
What?
There's me on the news.
Stop it.
Yeah. I'll never forget the clinical. I was at Harmerville Rehab doing a clinical and top story. There's my face while taking care of patients. And I'm just like, dear Lord, help me.
I'm sorry. That's just how did you not do an about face and walk out? How did you, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, well, because
obviously it's your job and you're taking care of people. And but in that moment, how did you not almost say, hey, I'm a real person standing here in front of you and I am doing this because I genuinely care about people and about taking care of people and helping people.
You want to know the wild thing that happened during that was that I was actually taking care of somebody who I knew before, from hometown, one of the people, right? And they're like, don't worry about that. They've been by my side through the whole thing. And they were like, don't worry about that. You're good. That's not your future. It's just
wow.
The statistics, right? The whatever you want to call it, of somebody that you actually know that you're taking care of while you're the top news story. The odds are probably pretty slim.
I don't know how.
I don't even remember what it was. Something. It was just I was always the top story for anything that was new or coming out everywhere.
And in your mind, you're probably thinking, this is not how I become top story. This is not my, did you feel that? Did you feel that? Where you're like, this
I was like, this can't be real.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to become top story. You know how many things are going on in the world?
Also, how crazy was it when you actually started, sending out manuscripts to people? What was that like?
That was wild.
That had to be just a totally okay.
Well, it was brand new to me. I was just following, what was suggested and the process and just sending, things out. And because of the time sensitivity turnaround too, and people that I had maybe known a little bit more, I just sent emails and it seemed to work really well. I still will send out some more manuscripts. I literally have a box of them. Whole box. Thank you, Minuteman Press, for the whole box.
Thank you, Minuteman Press.
I think I ordered 2 boxes. My husband was probably like, oh my gosh, these are so heavy when he picked them up.
Oh, yeah, because
I ordered
a
a
manuscript's
lot.
like a wider, it's not like the same size as the book,
I
so
ordered a
it's
couple $100 worth.
Wow.
You have to pay for those bad boys to be spiral bound and all that.
Oh, I bet you do. So, chapter 20, living authentically. So, each chapter, as I said, has a title. And then there is you call it scripture?
Yes.
So, I'm going to read that. And then I'm just going to read, we'll get to it. I'm going to stop pointing at the notebook and talk about it. Okay, so, search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. So that's Psalm 139, that's the chapter, right? Verses 23 through 24. What was it that you experienced that made you kind of come to this realization to does that make sense? The living authentically?
It took a hot minute. It took a hot minute to get to that point because when I came home, I'm going to backtrack, but when I came home, I was so conditioned that I would ask my mom, can I get a shower? Can I eat? I still wore flip-flops in the shower.
So how long were you? It was 11 and a half?
23 months I did. My sentence was 11 and a half to 23. My judge maxed me out.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was so conditioned that I was like, okay, is it bedtime? Pretty much like a soldier, tell me what to do, where to go, where to be. I didn't think for myself. And I didn't realize that I was at that point until I came home. And then one day my mom was like, you don't have to ask to eat a snack or when dinner was and, all those things that literally stripped me of my autonomy in the sense of being able to live, right? And so I had to go through that process first and had several more bumps in the road as far as relationships and just being and still trying to get back on track as far as my mental health and motivation, that it probably I would probably say not till 2017 did I feel that I was my true authentic self because I had trust issues, right? I mean, just going back to my relationship stuff, I had some trust issues and I was engaged to a Secret Service agent. I don't know if I ever told you this, but I was engaged to a Secret Service agent.
No.
Yeah.
You did not tell me that.
And so that was after I was released, 2014-ish. And it was a very interesting relationship, domestic violence survivor because of it. And it wasn't till after those mental mind games of somebody holding your criminal record over you for the littlest things where I was like, I am so much better than this. Mm-hmm. See ya, bye. And that's why I think I say 2017 because it still took a little bit of healing after that.
Of course. When something not only ends, but then on top of it, you add that layer of, because I've experienced that. I was in a abusive relationship and numb to the ability to leave, right?
Mm-hmm. It's hard. Yeah. People get stuck.
I was stuck. I was like, well, no one else is going to want to be with me. And that's how I felt about myself and the situation. And when I finally, it was almost like snap. And I was like, nope.
Yeah.
I'm done with this.
You need that. Ta-da.
Yeah. I remember having pictures of him on the wall in my townhouse. And I had the final straw was hearing from his ex-girlfriend and things that she was telling me that I was like, it was like, something's rotten in the state of Denmark and it's not the cheese. Okay. And that's from the Golden Girls. So I can't take credit for that, but that's straight out of the Golden Girls. Thank you for being a friend. Anyways, and sometimes I say that because I'm like, something's rotten here in the state of Denmark and it's not the cheese. Something's going on. And I just started to feel this anger. Yeah. And I'd been so closed, right? I had been so,
because you didn't want anybody to know.
such a dark place.
Yeah.
And I realized like I had gone to, and okay, we can talk about this. That was the first time I really struggled with my mental health and had suicidal thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time. And that was the only time. And I will say this, that was the only time that I was actually physically sitting with a glass. I still remember the cup and the bottle of pills. It was like one of those gigantic ibuprofen bottles from like Costco.
Yeah.
Like full of ibuprofen.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm just going to swallow it. And I remember it was one of those plastic cups from Walmart because I was in college. And it was like sparkly. I just remember.
Yeah. You don't forget
sitting.
These situations. Yeah.
And, you know, I am so grateful that I didn't. But I remember as I'm hearing these things from this girl and all my roommates are sitting around me and I'm ripping photos of him off the wall that I put up with those little like tab things, you know, so much that I'm ripping paint off the wall of our townhouse.
Yeah.
I mean, deposit, what's that? Like that, you know, I don't care. I'll paint the walls. Like I was so mad because I thought I let this one person convince me that I didn't even matter enough to exist.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, just in general, like, why is it that that's what happens when we go through something like that?
Yeah.
That all it takes, there could be all these people around you like, hey, like you're amazing, you're this, you're that. And you're like, I know.
Well,
but they are just like, they're the puppet master.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about, it's sad, but it's human nature, right? Nobody wants to hear a good story on the news. Everybody wants the drama. Everybody wants the action, the things that, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we like chase that adrenaline as humans, endorphins, all those kind of things. And so like 5,000 people could say something positive, but what sticks out is that one mean thing that somebody says. Same thing. It's just, unfortunately, I think, our human nature.
Well, and I think when you talk about the news as well and you see something like, it's like driving past an accident, how people, yes, we're slowing down.
Yeah,
because we're slowing down because we're slowing down because there's an accident. But when you're like on the other side and there's a barrier and people are like literally trying to peep over the barrier, you're like, seriously, why are we? Because it's almost this thing of like, we're all going to die someday.
Yeah, we want to know. We want to be in the know.
So it's sort of this, it's like fear combined with like wanting to know at the same time. And it's, so I feel like that's another question I have too, because, you know, going to jail for 23 months.
Mm-hmm.
So what time of year was it?
I was sentenced in the summer.
Okay.
I came home in January.
So you missed 2 Christmases.
Oh, yeah.
2 Thanksgivings.
Mm-hmm.
I think about that kind of stuff. You know, I think about how when you're single and these holidays come around and you're super hyper aware.
Yeah.
You were probably in the most alone, singledom sort of, and I don't even mean relationship wise. I mean, just like, yeah, maybe you get to make a phone call on Thanksgiving and talk to somebody for whatever, but you don't get to go over to grandma's house and sit at the table and eat the food and be annoyed by, you know, your uncles who are.
But at that point in my life, I didn't think I even deserved that.
Okay. Because that's what I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you what it was like going through this experience and this is when you like found God, right? Do you really believe that?
So I had a relationship with God beforehand. I think that going through all of this for sure solidified my relationship and my spirituality.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. I had to face myself. I had to face, you know, everything. I was actually, you know, talking to somebody earlier today, and it was something about like music and how people wear headphones, you know, to try to like do noise canceling, all those kind of things. But there's people that put music on real loud because they don't want to hear the silence and like face themselves. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes.
I would, yeah. At that point, I would have given anything to just drown all the silence out because I was in the hole. I was in protective custody. I mean, all these things. And it was just me, myself, and I, and like silence.
And you said that when you spent time multiple times in the hole,
Yeah.
you were there for not just like a day, right? You were there for.
Oh, yeah. Like at least a week at a time.
And would you lose track of?
Oh, yeah. You could. When you're in the hole, you're in for 23 hours a day. So that's if everything's going to plan, right? So you have to sit in there for 23 hours a day. And you can come out to like shower, but like you can't make phone calls. You can't like, it's just you and 4 cement walls in this tiny little window.
Can I ask you?
You can ask me anything.
Why did you have to go into the hole?
Oh, the first time I had to go in the hole because my toilet was clogged and it was overflowing and they refused to fix it. And I told them that this is unsanitary. Like, can you move my cell? Can you like, you know that as a prisoner, you still have rights. Most people don't know that. And I'm like,
yeah, you're a
violating,
human being, and they're asking you to walk around
rights.
in, let's just say, poo-poo water, okay? Because that's probably what I can say here when I really want to say.
So bad, and
that's awful.
And they like wanted to like lock me in, and I was like, I was just not having it. So all you have to do is like smart mouth, and if they're looking for a reason, they'll send you, well, hey, it got me out of my crappy cell. No pun intended. It was worth it. It's the only way I was gonna move.
Well, silver lining. She just found a silver lining in jail going into the hole. I mean, come on,
yeah,
seriously.
Myself. And
You're
they
like,
wouldn't fix it.
Did you have a toilet in the hole? I mean, you had to, right?
Yeah, you do.
I'm sorry. That was a silly question, but
No,
I don't know.
You want me to describe?
I really don't.
I mean, I don't think you want this whole episode to be about what a cell looks like.
No.
But I will say
people,
that I did see somebody, and I'm not going to drop names, somebody was wanting to know what a chi-chi was. I saw it on social media, somebody in our circle.
Have no
and
idea
I had to
what you're
laugh
talking
because
about.
chi-chi, you'll know who this is when you listen to it. A chi-chi is ramen noodles, and you're allowed hot water like once a day. If you hold the sink water long enough, it gets warm enough to make like al dente. And you just add like cheese into it, salsa.
Where are you getting all that stuff?
Commissary.
Okay.
Commissary is like what everybody lives for when you're in there. You just add all this stuff to it, and it's called a chi-chi. People will make garbage bags full. Like, literally, you'll see a garbage bag, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, they're having, like, a block party. So that's literally, like,
wow.
Chi-chis are the thing.
So did you make friends?
I did. I made a lot of friends, actually. And you know why I made friends? Because I listened. I was very fortunate when I came into the
first, because you transferred.
Well, I made friends both times.
Yeah.
The second time was harder because I was transferred after I was sexually assaulted by a corrections officer and came forward about it. And he was charged and all the things. But I was transferred for protective custody. So everybody in that prison, I didn't know anybody. Right here, I'm coming in. Everybody wants to know what you do, or they talk to people on the outside to try to figure out like why you're there, what your crime was.
Because protective custody could be a lot of different things, right?
It could, but then they just shipped me to another jail. So then I was like, I don't know anybody in this area. I don't know any of these people, so I'm starting all over again.
So the women that you met in there, like, you talk to them, you listen to them. What would you say was probably, I don't even know if it's appropriate for me to say fascinating, but I think women and men who spend time in jail for long periods of time really build up like thick skin, like a resilience to, you could do basically whatever and you're not going to knock me down.
Yeah.
And there's probably, and I don't want to, and I am totally speaking out of any experience or any knowledge of this, but I imagine that at some point in order to survive, you have to be like, listen, I've got to pull up my bootstraps and I got to keep going. But I'm sure there's a lot of people that really, really struggle too. So I don't want to take away from anyone who, and especially you talking about, having this little sliver, being able to like see out this window and not being able to leave this room for 23 hours, like, and literally talking to God.
Yeah. Or yelling at him. I yelled at him a lot. I was mad at him. But it wasn't his fault. It was like my choices, right, that led me there. So it took me a while to come to that realization. Like I don't want to say that I didn't come to it sooner, but it was like this internal battle of why? Why is this my life right now?
Like why was that the timeline
like,
of
how did I get
that,
here?
Yeah.
How did I get there? Was like my big thing.
Because those facts, all those things that you tell me, right, that you told me about how the accident transpired.
So I was actually involved in a double fatal crash in September 23rd, 2007. And it was the most awful day of my entire life. They died on scene, and people were trying to shield me from that. But I mean, I heard somebody say they don't have a pulse, and like just crushed. I was crushed, and then transferred to a trauma bay, where the patient in the back that I was transporting was in the trauma bay right next to me. So like, just hearing all the things, like I can still smell like the accident. I don't even know who opened my door. I don't even remember how I got out of the ambulance, honestly, because I know I couldn't get it open. And I remember seeing a person, but there was no person there. Literally, to this day, I have no idea how I got out of the door of that ambulance.
But you got yourself out, or someone got you out?
Somebody opened the door, but there was nobody there. So, nobody was there at that point. So, I don't know, but we got out, and go ahead.
If you believe someone was there and opened the door for you to get you out, then that's what happened.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I've experienced
the door was jammed.
What you're talking
yeah.
about, not in an accident sense, but oh yeah, I have had. Oh yes, absolutely, I've had. My dad, yeah, like crazy experiences after he passed away. Like one where like woke up and he was standing next to my bed. You know that?
Yeah.
And then straight up, huge white angel wings. Heard them, saw them, disappeared into the ceiling. And then started at the top of my head, just a really, very slowly calming feeling that went down through my whole body.
Wow.
And I heard a voice saying, this was the third time I'd heard the voice, but in not like a man's voice, a woman's voice, his voice. It was just, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And that was when I was living in New York. That's a long story, and that's not for now. But my point is that we are, we're souls. And I do believe that when we die, that our souls,
yeah,
sometimes maybe they stick around. Mm-hmm. That there's different planes of existence. This is just me. And I do believe that there are definitely like angels among us, and there are definitely like, yeah. So
I agree with that.
So when you said that, I was like, well, someone was there.
You got it.
That's it.
Yeah.
And you're gonna
people don't understand that unless they've experienced. They're kind of like, what? And I'm like, there's no other explanation.
And my spirituality is very different from yours.
It is, and that's fine.
It's different. It just is. Like there's a lot of things I believe in that people are like, I don't know. Like I'm a dinosaur girl. Not gonna lie.
My daughter's room is all dinosaurs.
Like I'm a dinosaur girl.
She's not old though. She's not dinosaur age.
Bored in Butler County? Need to know where to catch a show this weekend? What events are even happening in the area? I'm Molly Miller, one of the writers behind the Butler Eagles Weekend Entertainment section, and I'm here to banish the boredom from your cold and rainy days. Sign up and receive Miller Minutes. That's my column, and a list of Butler County-based events direct to your inbox every Thursday afternoon by visiting bit.ly/ButlerEagleWE newsletter. That's bit.ly/ButlerEagleWE newsletter. You can also find the latest events under the A&E tab at www.butlereagle.com. Click Weekend Entertainment. or pick up Thursday's print edition of the paper for the latest events. See, there's lots to do in Butler County when you read the Butler Eagles Weekend Entertainment section. Visit bit.ly/Butler Eagle WE newsletter to sign up for the weekly newsletter, so you won't be bored in Butler County again.
We've got to be able to another chapter on forgiveness. I think a lot of forgiving, empowering others through forgiveness is forgiving yourself.
Yeah, that's the hardest.
Because sometimes you feel like when you go through something, if someone does something to you, and you go through all the stages of like anger and all these things, which I'm sure you could probably feel a lot of that, right? Coming at you.
Yeah.
From people that like didn't know you.
Oh yeah, I got hate mail.
Didn't care to even things happen in life that they're not malicious. It's not malicious. It's not intentional. It wasn't. So finishing the story, because I think it's important for us to go back to, you got out of the ambulance and whenever you were at the hospital, being taken care of. And the other passenger said that they were working on to try to save them, right? But they did eventually pass.
Yeah, he a couple of days later, yeah.
Okay. When was it? How long were you there until you realized that kind of what was happening?
Not very long, because I literally, when my mom finally made it to the hospital, I was in such shock. And just kept like repeating like the same thing. Like, oh my God, I killed 2 people. Like, how am I ever going to live with myself? How? And that's literally all I could say. That's all I could say. I was in such shock and just like, what has happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And typically you said this was something that was news. It was all over. So immediately the story's already being told, because that's how, I am transmitting from a news organization. And
it's how it works.
That's how it works, right?
Yeah.
They have to report.
Everybody has a job in life. There's
information.
No judgment. Yeah.
They're reporting the information. But it's like, it's almost as if all this stuff is happening and you don't even have time to catch up because you're literally in shock of like.
I found out I was fired on the news.
What?
Yeah, that's how I found out I was officially fired from the ambulance company. It was on the news.
No one even called you and.
No. I mean, I could assume, right? But like, no. That's how I found out I was fired.
On the news. So then, obviously.
And I was working at Wendy's too. Wendy's fired me. Wendy's fired me because of the accident.
And
I got fired from everything. The only thing I didn't get fired from was nursing school.
We have basic essentials in life, right? Food, shelter, water, clothing. In order to provide those things for yourself, you need a job. Sometimes you need multiple jobs. I mean, I've had 3 jobs at one time. So instantly, like that in itself, it's like I say, this thing that I never ever thought this happened. And then now, because of that, both of these situations have happened. And when was it that, the law enforcement got involved? Like you were still at the hospital?
Oh, immediately. As ambulance protocol. Like even if I wasn't injured or anything, I would have had to have gone to the hospital. It's protocol.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were involved immediately. I mean, accident reconstruction immediately.
So when they took your, what time of day? It was the next day. Morning,
so the accident happened around like 2:20ish in the morning.
Okay.
And actually, we hadn't touched on this yet, but I was at a Pitt football game the night before, and actually the day before I had been drinking at like pre-gaming. Hadn't had a drink for a while and was, I felt like I was fine, and drove to work, and we already had one transport to Children's Hospital. So we drove from, Cranberry to Pittsburgh after the call, and then back I was driving. And then a little while later, we had another call, and that was the call that en route to Passavant, Maine, I crashed the ambulance. And my blood alcohol was 0.076.
Okay.
PA's 0.08, but there's a zero limit for, EMS. Like,
yeah.
I mean, and rightfully so.
Yeah. But enough, time had passed from when you had stopped drinking to when you went home. Did you go home and then you went to work?
Yeah.
We
were talking about this.
Didn't you say you went home and even laid down or something?
I did.
You had time to sleep?
Mm-hmm.
The importance of her sharing these details, one, which is not an easy thing, right? But it's what it is. It's the facts, right?
Yeah.
Is that I think a lot of people do exactly what you did.
That's why I talk about the timeline of it, because I mean, when I, drank, there would be times that I would shut the bar down, right? 2:00 and whatever, if you could get a late start, things like that. And I wasn't even a partier. I was not a party animal, just 21-year-old exploring and testing the waters. But that time frame between that and then whenever you get up and go to work in the morning, 7-8 o'clock, it's the same time frame, just reversed, right? Mine was in the middle of the night as opposed to first thing in the morning. So it's just it took me, it was an aha moment when I realized that too, right? I was like, oh, I wonder if that had ever really happened before, because I wouldn't have been thinking that. So it just makes you it just makes me pause, right? And I share that because I just hope people, and I know human nature, we don't really ever learn from other people's mistakes. We kind of have to feel that on our own, but just be mindful. Because trust me, you do not want to be in the situation that I was in. It's not worth it.
But even today, for instance.
Yeah.
Okay. Writing this book, coming out with this book, and then sharing this. And you've shared this. I mean, you shared it with me.
I'm always open about my life. I always have been.
What is do you still sort of get people that are you feel judgment from?
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. But I just don't let it bother me anymore. I'm way past that, because I mean, after I've had so many things said about me to people that don't even know me, or people that know me, or people that have left, all the things throughout, the accident, the assaults, whatever. I don't let people rent space in my head like that anymore.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
You can't, because you also can't go back and change the past.
And it took me a long time to realize that there's nothing that I can ever do. No amount of volunteering, no being a better person, no anything that can rewrite things. The only thing I have control over is making the next right decision, raising my children to, be educated and make, better choices, and all those things. That's all I can do, is just every day my feet hit the floor, try to be better, do better, and leave the world better.
Wow. I have to commend you for that, because I don't think that's not an easy path to choose. It's literally probably been an uphill battle, and might continue to be an uphill battle.
Oh, it might.
Yeah.
I really had to think about this when writing this book.
Yeah.
Because what people have always seen, you know, over the past how many years, I'd say at least 10 years, is like success, success, success. Like people that don't know the story or like maybe for whatever reason haven't put it together. They don't see the mountain that like has literally been just bulldozed over to get to where I'm at. But that's the case for a lot of people. You think about how many people fail, right? I don't view failure as definitive. I view it as like an opportunity to do better or learn from it and then move forward.
So as we talk about living authentically, is living a life aligned with your morals and values. This kind of life is an inspiring journey that starts with declaring affirmations and making a conscious choice to be true to yourself. Authenticity means you're true to your own personality, values, and spirit, regardless of the pressure that you are under to act otherwise. You are honest with yourself and with others, and you take responsibility for your mistakes, your values, ideals, and actions align. We talked a little bit about you. You already said that you see yourself writing another book. When you were writing the book, what was the biggest struggle?
Getting started. That was the biggest struggle because I knew I wanted to start it, but I didn't know what I wanted to say. And this was part of the reason that I didn't pursue the book that I wrote in 2014 because the one thing that I do hold dear to my heart about how people feel about me, and I would never want to be disrespectful, is the victim's family.
Of course.
And so, when I had wrote the other one, you know, it was a different tone. I was in a different space. This one I've matured, right? But still at the heart of it, like fine tooth comb, like how are things worded? Just that part really like holds a lot of weight to me because I would never ever want to disrespect them and hurt them even more than I already have.
That can't be an easy realization to come to, and something that honestly you might feel that forever.
Yeah, it's not something that ever goes away. Like, you know, loss and all those things, you kind of learn to deal with it. I don't know any other nice way to say that, right? But like it's still something that I think about. You know, and even when it's like the holidays, you know, I still take a moment and like say that prayer every holiday, like, you know, for their families because they have an empty seat at the table.
Did you ever have any conversations with the people that you worked with that you were did you ever have a chance to talk to any of those people after the accident?
So yes and no. So yes, I had, you know, a good bit of support after the accident. And I also ran with Munhall Ambulance at the same time. They were supportive from day one, the whole way through. Like even when charges dropped on my birthday, when I found out that I had alcohol in my system, I had no clue up until then. That's when people at the other station started to like peel back. But yeah, I mean, kept in touch with people and I don't know.
Wow.
I was afraid when I came home. Like I was super embarrassed. I would be like, if the ambulance, I'm like, I'll take a different road, or just feeling judged still at that point because I came back to the same community.
Okay.
Took me a while to get past all that.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how anyone could go through that experience. And even like just how you said it in the beginning of the episode. You literally said the words like, I killed 2 people.
Yeah. I did.
I don't
and
think,
like, I'm sorry, we'll never be just, like all the things. There's nothing you can say.
yeah.
It's, to me, it's just doing the next right thing and hoping other people
Yeah.
learn. And there's nothing like, what do you say to that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if there ever was a better title for what you did.
My book.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's powerful. Because everybody's been through trauma, whether they're talking about it or not. Think about 2020. That was traumatic for every single person, right? People didn't know whether to come or go or all the things. So
if we had a fever, we were like, this is it.
We're gonna be done. Like,
yeah. And the underlying health issues that were also exacerbating the COVID symptoms, right? Or the COVID was,
vice versa.
They had, pneumonia, but then if they got COVID, that was it.
Yeah.
And then also the, just how we had to change the way we did everything. It's so weird to think that we experienced that.
I know.
It's almost interesting to think that it's along the lines of, your accident, what happened to you in jail, the stories we've been talking about all season, the stigma behind substance abuse and
mental health
and all of these things. And it's like, no one is immune. Our generation this time, it's like something. I mean, we know people that have been through the Great Depression, World War II, 1 and 2, but like, think about that. Think about being in America during World War II.
I know, I couldn't imagine.
And in your brain being like, wait, what is happening? What are they doing to human beings? How are we? I mean, and we don't need to get into any of this right now, but that stuff's still happening.
All over the place.
All over the place. And we are very, very, very fortunate to live where we are right now and not have to be like looking up and wondering like, or sitting at dinner with our family hearing bombs going off in the distance.
I know.
I just think that coming on here and even just talking about it and saying exactly what happened.
And I'm thankful that you invited me on the show.
Well, yeah, I mean, the minute I met you, I was like introduced to you and I'm thinking, okay, I need to know her. I need to talk to her. And then we were like, I'm writing a book.
And I was the open book anyhow from when you met me. That's how I am.
I do think something that's important to say here is it seems as if this was yesterday. Does it ever feel like that?
Yeah, it does.
And then you're like married now with 2 kids.
3.
Oh my God, she has 3. That's right. You have 2 girls and a boy.
6, 4, and 2.
Oh,
I was either pregnant or just delivered.
Blessed
the
be.
whole way through my master's, doctorate, and the postdoc.
Stop
degree.
it. I can't keep up with you.
Yeah. It was wild.
I feel like I need to go home and start training for like a triathlon or something with this one.
Listen.
I'm like, okay.
I'll do it because I need to get back into shape. I need to get back into my mountaineering for real.
Maybe we could do a team thing because I don't have medial meniscus in basically either one of my knees. So running is kind of not a great thing anymore. Although it was one of my... I ran in college and anyways, if you were to give advice to someone who is going through something that they absolutely have convinced themselves is not only the hardest thing in their life, but something that they cannot see themselves digging out of ever. There's no way out of this. I've ruined my life. It's done. It's over. What would you say to them?
Oh, that's good. That's good. I would say don't lose hope. Hope is one thing that can keep you above water. Just the thought, the concept of hope, like that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Even if we can't see that tunnel's like years long, right? There's like hope, like a sliver, a glimmer of hope can be the catalyst to keep you moving and put one foot in front of the other. But I would really say reach out, get connected, stay connected. It's so easy to just not stay connected, right? And just kind of like feel like you can disappear into like the abyss of your head, and getting stuck in your head is the worst place like that you can be. So I would definitely say if you're going through a time that seems like too much, unbearable, especially nowadays with like economy and housing and all these important topics where people are really struggling. Mental health is huge, right? But we've kind of opened that discussion a little bit. Not enough, not near enough.
Mm-mm.
But just reach out. Surround yourself with somebody you trust, that you're comfortable saying, like, I'm not okay, because it is okay to not be okay. I was not okay for a long time. And I held on to that glimmer of hope. And like we've talked about, like my relationship with the Lord really carried me personally, but I understand everybody's different and I respect people for their beliefs and where they're at. So whatever that is, hold on, because you're worth it and you matter. And even if it's dark, it's not always dark, just like it's not always like riding highs, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's the valleys and the peaks.
You know, when I taught at Soul Cycle, one of the things we did was said motivational things. And I, you know, used to always say this one thing. And it's like the first time I said it in class, I was like, oh, it would come out of nowhere. All those endorphins, you'd be like, blah. And I remember I said, when you're down and you're as low as you feel like you could possibly be in life, there's only one way to go.
Mm-hmm.
You can only go up from here. You literally can only go up. Thank you for tuning in to Alter Eagle. Join me every Monday for a new episode, and be sure to click subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Follow us on Instagram at Alter Eagle Podcast. Until next time, stay safe, stay hopeful, stay kind.